Well, because the thing is that the big banks aren't. Certainly some of the banks like Citwell. I saw where Delta had actually to borrow. They wanted to borrow, I don't know, $100 million, something like that, at 17% interest. 17% interest. So
they can't make that kind of money. I mean, their bottom line is, in the best of times, is 7 or 8%.
Sure, you're talking about Delta now.
All the airlines.
Sure, and it's just, so but basically what they're doing is the banks are strangling the airlines. They're going to go. Some of them got to go bankrupt, quite frankly, and it's just going to have a profound impact. Then, of course, the government will step in and take over the airline industry as they took over the automotive industry.
Well, after they band them all together into a national airline, they'll have Henry Paulson run it.
Well,
he'll probably own 30% of the stock. He's worth billions of dollars now.
I know he is. Well, he's done very, very well, and certainly, I did realize, of course, that when he left Goldman Sachs and his, I think, $35 million a year job so he could take a job at the Treasury for $185,000 a year. I thought, now there's a man who's really idealistic, until I found out he was able to sell, I think, $200 million of his Goldman Sachs stock and not pay any income tax on it, because he was going to work for government, and we wouldn't want to, of course, punish anybody if he's going to work for government. So he gets, of course, to cash in $200 million of Goldman Sachs stock and not pay a cent of income tax. I wish I could do that.
Well, you can if you belong to the Brotherhood of the Bell.
Or the Brotherhood of Darkness, or call it what you will. Mm-hmm. Of course, he's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. The Bilderbergers, the elite, of course, who really run our country, but you will never hear this discussed on most radio programs. Well, anyway,
sure.
What is the next thing that's going to happen? Certainly, we're going to be seeing the second quarter earnings report coming out, and so far, look about half have been up and half have been down. As more and more of them come in, what are we going to see? What's going to happen to the Standard & Poor's stock earnings?
Well, the most important earnings are already out, and they were all fudged. The next quarter should not look good at all. And those earnings will come out probably the second to the third week in September. And that could be a bloodbath. What the FASB is going to do and what time frame remains to be seen. But I'd have to guess if they're going to make changes. It would be at the beginning of the year, or perhaps the beginning of the end of June. I don't know. But something's going to happen there. And, you have an economy that they say is now bottomed out in recession, and that it's going to be heading back up again. And not only is unemployment 20.5% on the U6 basis without the birth-death ratio. And so, and it's getting worse. We predicted in the International Forecaster in January 22% unemployment by the end of the year. And I got letters, people telling me I was insane. And of course, we get letters like that every once in a while. And of course, I wasn't insane. And because of the spending that's in the pipeline, next year should be neutral. But if they come up, and I projected this in January as well, with $2 trillion in additional stimulus, well, I imagine that will keep the economy on even keel, and perhaps the second half of next year and early the following year, the market might get better, and the economy might get better, but not sufficiently so. I've given figures out, and we're looking at a minus 6.7 in the fourth quarter, a minus 5.5 in the first quarter. We're probably looking at 5.3 in the second quarter. Last half of the year, we're probably looking at a minus 4%. With stimulus coming next year, plus the double stimulus, if you get it, it'll probably go to even, or maybe even to a plus 0.5%. But that's it.
Well, of course, you can't get recovery till you get jobs. You can't get jobs till you got industry borrowing money. You can't get industry borrowing money till the banks will lend money, and the banks aren't lending money. This is the big thing. In fact, we just heard just before this program on the news that banks are cutting back on lending. Cutting back? I mean, most of them aren't lending at all anyway, and now they're going to cut back on that. Well, of course, people are having difficulty getting, mortgages when they want to buy a home today. And this whole thing is being created by the banks refusing to lend, and it's all orchestrated. Stan and Chris, Bob Chapman was just talking about what's good for gold. He said when you have an inflationary depression, it's good for gold, and when we have an inflationary recession, it's good for gold. But you pick up the story there.
And the most important thing of all is that in the last 9 years, we have seen the price of gold go from $252 to approximately $1,000. And everything else has not performed that way. Gold has been a winner and silver every year. And there's a reason for that. They are wealth protectors. They are there to conserve your wealth in bad times, whether they're inflationary or deflationary, or wars, or collapse of financial systems, in this case, the collapse of the dollar. And so we are headed toward higher gold and silver prices. How high, I think, is irrelevant. My instructions to subscribers is buy and hold. There's no reason for you to do anything else as long as you have quality product. I don't think I recommended a sale of, well, certainly not in gold and silver related assets, and probably three years. I don't believe in lots of trading, or trading for that matter. You're either in the right place at the right time or you're not. And this is the way bull markets act. This is the way bear markets act when you're in the regular stock market. That's what we've seen there. That is the bear market rally, all the earmarks. And there's been several historically like that. But getting back to gold, we have the added disadvantage of having central banks, particularly the Federal Reserve as well as the U.S. Treasury, manipulating markets and putting pressure on gold and silver. And the only way ultimately they can do that is by selling the physical into the market. And they don't have much left. And one of these days, we're going to wake up and gold's going to be up $200. And silver's going to be up $5 or something like that. And that is going to happen. And if you look at the inflation between 1980, when gold was $850, and today, officially, gold should be selling at about $2,700 an ounce. The unofficial inflation would have it somewhere between $6,400 and $6,900 an ounce. But it's not there because our government is cheating us. And so gold is there to protect you no matter which way things go. And that's my bet. That's what I think that the safest place to be is. I mean, I wouldn't own a treasury, a U.S. Treasury, unless I couldn't buy anything else. And I think the stock market's going down. I think interest rates are going to go higher. And I think the bond market is going to go down as a result of that. You look at home sales, new home sales today up 11%. Because I think they're kidding. If you read the fine print, it says estimated, which means nothing at all. So about 2 weeks from now, they'll come back and say, oh, it wasn't up 11%. We made a mistake. It was only up 4.5%.
Well,
and, they do this all the time.
Well, I think here in California, we just supposedly solved the $26 billion deficit the state has. And now, suddenly they're saying, hey, in a month or two, why, it may even be worse. And of course, it's going to be worse because people are not making enough money to pay state income tax. All they've got are the billionaire, the very, very rich people. Tony Bryant cannot support and Barbara Streisand cannot support our state. And, of course, we raise their taxes. They're simply going to pick up and move elsewhere. And this is, of course, what happens as you raise the taxes, why you very often decrease the income. So basically, a lot of people are hurting. The sales tax is down, the gasoline tax is down, the income tax is down. So the money that they've been planning on getting in, of course, to have a balanced budget, is not going to come in. And this is happening all across America. Are you hearing about that, Bob?